I'm going to try something that might blow the whole thing up a little bit. And it's not like in a bad way, I don't think. I don't know. It's not necessarily my fault even that this is going to happen. I just learned something during the process of preparing for this episode that kind of threw a wrench in everything.
Okay.
And so I'm a little nervous.
This is the Exploring the National Parks podcast with Dirt in My Shoes. My name is Ash, and I'm a former park ranger and the founder of Dirt in My Shoes. I think that the parks are best seen from the trail, and I'm here to make national park trip planning easy.
And I'm John. I carry the kids on the trails, I tell stories, and notice all the things that Ash doesn't care about much, like trees.
Join us as we show you around America's spectacular national parks.
We're sharing our favorite places, fun facts, adventures, and misadventures.
And we'll even throw in a little trip planning.
Let's start exploring.
We just got back from Disneyland with our family.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's funny. I was thinking about this while we were there, but over the years, people will leave comments, especially people who are mad about the national parks and what's going on. But they'll leave comments like, it's not even worth going to the national parks anymore. They all feel like Disneyland. And I learned something very important about myself, which is that I don't like Disneyland.
Whoa, hot take. That's a hot take right there.
I can hike 15 miles through a national park and be fine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm tired, but I'm fine. I'm rejuvenated.
Right.
15 miles through Disneyland just about killed me.
You
know what I mean?
It was rough.
We were so tired. I was on sensory overload. I could not think. I couldn't, I don't know. I was so exhausted.
Right. Both of us.
Yeah.
We just got back to the hotel and just collapsed.
Yeah, but I guess I don't really feel that way when I'm in the national parks. Anyway, I can see some reasons why people might say the national parks are a little bit like Disneyland, especially if you do it wrong when you're in the national parks.
Right.
It's then you are sitting in the full parking lots and dealing with all the crowds and stuff like that. But it's no, it's not even close.
Right.
For me.
Yes, because you can find places that are pretty quiet and you're hiking around and you can find a place to sit down. The thing that I noticed was we can do 15 miles in Disneyland, but what your Fitbit or whatever isn't counting is then the hours of standing in line.
Yeah.
Where you're not stepping, you're not moving, you're just standing.
Yeah. We also did the lightning lane, so that helped the line situation. It's not like we were waiting in line for hours on anything.
Right.
But anyway, I thought it was interesting because there's a part of California Adventure near the Grizzly River Rapids ride. I don't even know what it's called.
Right.
The Grizzly Rapids.
It was awesome. And it reminded us of the national parks.
They had all these national park theme signs, and there was trees and waterfall and stuff. And I was just oh, this is my favorite part.
Our favorite part of Disney and California Adventure was the part that reminded us of Yosemite.
Yep. So anyway, it was an interesting experience. We've been to Disneyland before. We've been to Disney World. It was just this time in particular, I don't know. I think people are screaming a little bit for more peace.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all need a little bit more peace in our lives. And I'm definitely at that point too, where it's just man, I need to simplify and I need to slow down and I need to take time to just breathe.
Right.
And I think a lot of people are feeling that way, or if they're not, they need to be because things are getting a little out of control. But anyway, that's why when I was walking through Disney and stuff and I was you know what? This is fine. This is fun, and I know people love it and it makes them happy and that's fine. But for me, turning down the sensory overload and just sitting in nature and just listening to a bird chirp and listening to the water, the stream.
And the wind blow through the trees.
Yeah. That's what I need right now. That's really what like my soul is reaching out for.
Mhm.
So anyway, I do not accept the comparison that the national parks are like Disneyland. I can see where sometimes the national parks feel a little bit busy. If
Mhm.
you need help with that, go to Dirt in My Shoes and grab one of our itineraries because we don't sit in the crowds.
No.
We don't experience the parks in that way, and we help thousands of people see the parks in the way that we like to see them,
I know.
which is with no people.
I know.
So-
Exactly. It's a lightning lane all throughout the parks.
It is. So anyway, just really interesting experience. I do not want to go back. I am not itching to go back to Disney at all. So,
Oh, man.
but we are going to Yosemite. By the time this runs, we'll have already gone. But
I know. We just went to Disney, and now we came back to Utah, and now we're going back to California. 2 totally separate experiences.
yes,
It's gonna
to
be
the mountains. I'm so excited.
the mountains are calling, and we must go, right?
Anyway, oh my gosh. I'm really excited also to talk about Bryce Canyon and Bryce Canyon fun facts today.
Mm-hmm.
John has been tirelessly typing away on his computer preparing for this.
Oh, I'm nervous for today's episode. Like, I don't normally get nervous
Why are you nervous?
because I don't know how this one's going to play out.
I feel like
I
I
might-
always feel that way when I podcast with you.
I know, but this one specifically is just like, I'm going to try something that might blow the whole thing up a little bit. And it's not like in a bad way, I don't think. I don't know. It's not necessarily my fault even that this is going to happen. I just learned something during the process of preparing for this episode that kind of threw a wrench in everything.
Okay.
And so I'm a little nervous. If you've ever seen the original Jurassic Park, have you seen that movie, right, Ash?
Yeah, I have.
Do you actually remember seeing that movie?
I do not.
I didn't think so. I'll try not to spoil it for you.
It's okay. You can spoil.
Okay, but
It's like a 30-year-old movie. How
Okay.
old is it?
I don't know. It came out.
90s.
Yes.
That would make it around 30,
Yeah.
I
It's
think.
so good.
Okay.
And real dinosaur animatronics. It's not CGI. It
Yeah.
looks so good. But the conflict that kind of set the entire Jurassic Park franchise into motion was White Rabbit Object. And so if you've ever seen Seinfeld, Newman from Seinfeld, he's not called Newman in Jurassic Park, but everybody knows him as Newman. He's a programmer that's kind of in charge of like setting up all the systems for Jurassic Park. Well, he kind of installed a program that's more like a virus into Jurassic Park's system. And it turned off the security cameras and some fences and phones and a whole bunch of other stuff. Well, the obvious problem with that is that the park is full of dinosaurs. If you turn off the safety fences, obviously you're going to have a really cool movie, right? Well, after a lot of things go wrong and they figure out what Newman did, their only option for getting the park back online is they have to reset the entire system back to its original programming settings. And the way they do this, in my opinion, is like the greatest tech support meme of all time. Because they have to just turn everything all the way off and then turn it back on.
Mm-hmm. Which is what they always tell us to do.
Exactly. Have you tried turning it off and then turning it back on again? No. Well, do that and let's see if it works. Well, anyways, Samuel L. Jackson, he's the guy that has to do all. He's like their only hope. And he has one of the best lines when he's like discussing, talking about this. Like, we've never tried this before. And then he goes and he flips the switches to turn the power off. And before he turns it all back on, he says, in the perfect Samuel L. Jackson way, "Hold on to your butts." It's one of my favorite lines of the whole franchise. It's so funny, and I don't want to spoil it all. But in the movie, things sort of work out. Not for everybody, but things kind of go according to plan. The reason this relates to today's episode is because Bryce Canyon has an established programming and lore, but I discovered a white rabbit object that we need to discuss that throws kind of everything into chaos a little bit for me. And we're going to try to do a factory reset after I throw the virus into the system.
Okay.
And so we'll just have to see how everything works out. So hold on to your butts, is what I'm saying. But Ash, I would like to ask you to please take us to Bryce Canyon. I'm going to give you the location, and if you wouldn't mind, take us to the rim and describe it for us. Okay. We've just parked the car. We've already gone past Ruby's and through the entrance station, and we've got the map. We've driven through the trees and the meadows, and we've just parked our car at Sunset Point parking lot.
Okay.
Take us to the rim and describe it for us.
All right. So, park at Sunset Point. You go to the bathroom. You fill up your water because you're going on a big adventure.
Right.
And then you walk on a little pathway through the trees. There's several paths that converge at the Sunset Point overlook.
Mm-hmm.
And this overlook juts out into the canyon from the rim. It's easy to get to. It's flat. You're looking down. To your right, you are looking towards Inspiration Point and Bryce Point. So the rim continues to get higher from where you're standing. And it gets deep as you're looking down. You're looking into Wall Street.
Mm-hmm.
And Wall Street is the coolest part of the amphitheater, really. But it's where there's all these big giant hoodoos that are next to each other with a little path that goes between them. And so you've got the towering hoodoos on both sides of you. But when you're looking from Sunset Point and looking down, it's just like this big dark space in between the hoodoos that are coming up.
Right.
Which is really cool. And then if you look more to your left, then you're looking at the bigger expansive part of Bryce Canyon, of the amphitheater. So you can see hoodoos forever, it seems like, with big plateaus and mesas behind it and the big mountains behind it. But in your foreground, you have Thor's Hammer, which is one of the most recognizable hoodoos in Bryce Canyon. That one looks like Thor's Hammer.
Right.
And it's just kind of right in front of your face. But then you've got all the hoodoos behind it into the distance.
And what you've used the word hoodoos. What are hoodoos?
So hoodoos are rock formations. Not sure if that's the technical term, but that's what we all call them. That's what Bryce Canyon calls them. But they're basically just giant pillars of rock.
Right. And how many of them can you see from this point?
What do your elf eyes see?
Lord of the Rings quote. Nice. Way to start this off right.
I don't know. Thousands?
So I don't think there is an actual counted
I don't know if there's
number.
A counted number, but there's a lot.
Like infinite numbers of hoodoos jutting out of the ground. So these pillars of rock all around this point that's kind of jutting out like a peninsula into the canyon a little bit. And you're just seeing hoodoos, pillars of rock jutting out of the ground, thousands and thousands upon thousands of them, all going off into the distance.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. It's so crazy. What I was thinking about, what is this like? Is it like Dr. Seuss land? What is this like? And what I was thinking about, have you ever seen the movie Ender's Game? The movie has Harrison Ford in it, but the book was written quite a long time ago. But what's super interesting about Ender's Game is that it's kind of like a War of the Worlds type of situation. And the humanity's greatest enemy has attacked us. And so we decide to go and attack them back. And as we get closer to their world, we kind of just see what it looks like. And it's actually called the Formic Homeworld, but they just call it the Bugger Homeworld because these aliens look like giant praying mantis ants. And they live in like colonies. And their whole planet looks like Bryce Canyon because it like all of these giant termite mounds, but they're like really spiky and sharp. And there's just millions and millions and millions of these. And that to me is what Bryce Canyon looks like. It looks like an alien planet with just millions of these mounds just jutting out of the ground. And I don't know, when I think about that, when I look at it, there's a few different emotions that come to mind. Even the word that we use to describe these pillars of stone in this park, hoodoo, it comes from the Southern Paiute word, udu, meaning being afraid or showing fear. Bryce Canyon kind of elicits two main kinds of emotion that sort of both relate to like awe, fear and wonder. There's the two different kinds of ways that you can feel awe in my mind. And I think right now we are more in an era of like wonderment and amazement when it comes to awe when we see it. But for the majority of human history, people felt more like a leaning towards the fear aspect of awe.
Right.
When they looked at Bryce Canyon. That's why the word hoodoo is kind of describing all of these pillars of rock for some reason jutting out into our vision. And the reason why there is so much awe is because there really is no other place on Earth like it. Which brings me to fun fact number 1. Fun fact number 1 is that Bryce Canyon has the highest concentration and the largest collection of hoodoos on the planet. On the planet!
Yeah, I mean, I'm not aware of anywhere else that has anything up to that scale.
No,
There's
nothing.
a few other places in Utah. I'm sure there's places elsewhere too that have some.
Right, like right outside of Bryce Canyon, you have Red Canyon, which has some hoodoos.
Mm-hmm.
And then
a little further out, you've got Cedar Breaks,
which has
some hoodoos.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's just that they're smaller sections of hoodoos. But Bryce Canyon itself is just like all of a sudden you reach the rim, you're looking out, and just all you see are hoodoos.
Yeah.
And you've never had that experience before anywhere else because you can't. You can't have that experience anywhere else. It's just amazing to me. Like, I can't believe right here on this place, and it blows everything else away.
And it's different than all the other Utah parks too, so that's what's cool.
Yeah.
Because as you're traveling around, you get to Bryce Canyon, and it's like, I have not seen this before. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's like, wow, this is so different from anything we've seen up to this point or will see.
Right. We've talked about how, like, when we did the Capitol Reef Fun Facts episode, we talked about how Utah is like this amazing art exhibit where you have all of this red rock that's carved into different shapes and different things. And this is the place in Utah where you get the hoodoos.
Yeah. It really is indescribable.
It's so cool. Okay. Now, are you ready for your hold on to your butts moment?
I am. I've been anxiously awaiting it.
I figured we would get it over with now, and then we'll take care of the rest of the episode.
All right.
Okay. Fun fact number 2 is that we might not actually know how they form.
I thought we already knew. So maybe that's what you're talking about.
Yes.
I thought they knew how they formed.
Our understanding...
And by our, we mean not mine and John's.
Yes.
Because our understanding is very limited in the realm of geology.
Yes. So fun fact number 2 is, yes, we might not actually know how they form, but our understanding of how these hoodoos form could be completely wrong. Like when we did the exploring episode, I hadn't had this little white rabbit object thing even come into me, you know? And so what I'm saying is, so this is what happened. In 2022, some park rangers at Bryce Canyon National Park, there were at least 2 of them. One was a seasonal ranger, but one is like the physical scientist of Bryce Canyon. They were talking and they kind of wanted to know, how could climate change affect the hoodoos? And they were just talking about it, and they were kind of doing some work and some research. And as they were putting their research together, they found there is only one unpublished research study or dissertation that everything else is based upon. And that one study is what provides us with the thaw and freeze hypothesis.
Okay.
That is how these hoodoos form. So, synopsis, real fast. The freeze and thaw hypothesis is that water gets into the rocks, it freezes, and then when it freezes, it expands, and then it breaks off pieces of rock. And that's what forms the hoodoos.
Which you do see happening in the park.
Yes.
So it's not incorrect necessarily because that is what happens.
Right. It does.
Every winter, and there's areas, like I said, like Wall Street, where it's just this huge chasm between the giant hoodoos.
Mm-hmm.
You can't even walk down in there because of this freeze and thaw. It's breaking pieces of rock off.
Correct.
All the time. So
right.
It does happen.
Right.
But I always wondered, I guess I did always kind of wonder, like, how did that make it like a pillar, though?
Yeah, because here's the thing. That freeze and thaw action that breaks rocks happens anywhere in the world where water can freeze and thaw.
Right, yeah.
And it happens all over southern Utah.
Well, and I mean, that's kind of what happens at arches, too, is the water can get into the pores of the rock.
Uh-huh.
And freeze and thaw and break it apart.
Exactly.
Too. So, yeah.
And so they've kind of done, like in arches, we talked about how those arches form.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying about this, what these two park rangers found in 2022, and they wrote a whole article about it. Their conclusions in the article is basically like, we don't actually know how climate change is going to affect the hoodoos. But the greater discovery that they mention in there is we might not actually know, not because we don't know, like climate change is just a big question mark. The actual question is, we might not actually know how these form because water freezes and thaws and breaks rocks all around the world.
Right.
It breaks all over southern Utah. And in some places we get arches, some places we get Cathedral Valley. Here in Bryce Canyon, we're getting hoodoos in greater concentrations and in greater density than anywhere else on the planet. And we're just assuming it's because
of the freeze
and thaw.
Doesn't do this anywhere else. Dude, that's so cool, though. Like, doesn't that... I feel like that adds to the awe.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're standing there looking at it, this is what I love. Because there are so many smart people in this world who can figure out so many things.
Yes.
But there are an infinite number of things that we still don't know.
Right.
And how cool is that?
Right.
That we don't know everything. We don't need to know everything. We're never going to know everything. And I kind of love that feeling because then you can just stand there and you can be like, miraculous.
Yeah.
That it's even here.
Well, yeah. Then you can look at it and have a sense of awe.
Yeah.
And amazement because we sort of have an idea.
But we don't know it all.
We don't know it all.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yes.
I actually really, when we find out stuff like that, I'm like, we don't know. That's so exciting. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's bad. But
right.
In the case of like being out in nature and stuff, I think that's really what connects you to something greater than yourself. Is all the unexplained around you that just is miraculous.
Right. I know. I think that's why we love, like when we got to the Yosemite part of Disneyland and we're just like, I know. I don't know. But nature is our happy place.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when you get to the rim at Sunset Point or Bryce Point, Inspiration Point, Sunrise Point, any of these points where you can look out at the amphitheater and observe all these hoodoos, I think it's just so cool for me to now know there's something that we can't explain here. So that's the wrench. But now let's try to reset the programming a little bit to actually maybe understand things a little bit better.
Okay.
Because I did a kind of a deep dive to kind of understand things. And I think from here, now that we've trashed all of our preconceptions a little bit, let's build from this.
Okay.
And maybe get a greater appreciation for why Bryce Canyon is the only place on Earth like this.
Okay.
Okay, so let's jump to fun fact number 3. And this will help us a little bit, I think, to really set a firm foundation that we can build off of. Fun fact number 3 is that Bryce Canyon exists within what the scientists call a Goldilocks zone.
Okay.
Where everything is just right when it comes to Bryce Canyon. If just one ingredient is off, the hoodoos might not exist.
Okay.
And so what's cool about this is the things that have to be right are elevation,
Okay.
precipitation, temperature, the kinds of rock, the chemicals inside the rock, and the chemicals inside the rain that fall onto the rock.
Oh, really? Sheesh. That's not a complicated recipe at all.
Well, exactly. That's why I think this is so interesting. We actually haven't said this in a very long time. Ash, where do you think Bryce Canyon was millions and millions of years ago?
Under a shallow sea.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, I love that we haven't got to say that in a long time.
I know.
Like.
Is that just an inside joke with us now?
It might just be.
You guys might not remember that every answer to that question is under a shallow sea.
We've said that for so many national parks. Fun facts. Okay, so yes, millions of years ago, Bryce Canyon was under a shallow sea. And what happens when you're under a shallow sea, normally, deposition happens. And deposition happens when rivers and streams bring sediment, rocks, and dirt from mountains far away, and they deposit that dirt into the shallow sea or the lake or whatever, and then it settles down to the bottom, and then it builds up the bottom of the lake until eventually you just have a massive layer of sandstone. And so you have this layer of sandstone that was basically at sea level. Do you know the elevation of the highest point in Bryce Canyon now, Ash?
I do.
What is it?
9,100 feet above sea level.
Right. Wow.
Wow, I know. And it's really shocking to think that you're that high when you're standing there because it doesn't look like it. So it's just
I know.
like, oh, weird.
When you're at like 9,000 feet above sea level, it seems like you should be at the top of a snow-capped peak.
Yeah.
Looking out at a Grand Valley or something like that. But you are at an amazingly high elevation up here. And you're on a plateau, basically, all the way up here. The land is relatively high and flat up here. The whole entire landscape has been raised like 9,000 feet, which is amazing.
Right.
Okay, so that's the first thing that we have to recognize. So this elevation, all of Bryce Canyon, the highest point is like 9,100. But a lot of the park is lower than that, but it's all between basically 8,000 and 9,000 feet above elevation. So that is a Goldilocks zone.
Just needing to be high elevation in general?
Well, because the elevation affects a lot of these other things.
Okay.
It affects the next thing, which is temperature. Temperature is a big deal when we think about the freeze and thaw hypothesis. Okay.
Right.
Because the freeze and thaw hypothesis, you have to actually have the water get below 32 degrees, expand, and when water expands, it expands by 9% in size. And so it expands, possibly breaks the rock, and then when it thaws, it shrinks again and leaves space so that maybe the next day, more water can seep into that gap that is now larger by 9%, and then more water can freeze, expand by 9%, and then you just keep making the cracks larger and larger until finally the rock breaks off, right? So that's the freeze-thaw hypothesis. And the temperature Goldilocks zone is that Bryce Canyon National Park has between 170 and 200 days a year where the temperature fluctuates below freezing and then pops back above freezing. So that
That's a large portion of the year. That's why when people like want to go to Utah, they want to go to the Utah parks and they're like, is spring break a good time? I'm like, well, you're going to be in snow in Bryce Canyon and Capitol Reef. The other parks are usually okay, but it's like, Bryce Canyon's kind of the limiting factor there because of that elevation, a lot of people don't realize. Totally different weather than the other. Even Zion. Zion's an hour and a half away. Completely different weather.
Even just slightly further than Zion, if you go out to Las Vegas, I saw like some people were reporting that Las Vegas only has 10 days of that below freezing fluctuation. It's kind of a big deal. And so in this article that I was mentioning, they report that like 50 years ago, like in the 60s or 70s, when they first started recording this stuff, that Bryce Canyon had like 220 days of above freezing fluctuations.
Okay.
There has been a bit of a change over the years.
Yeah.
And so, but going from 220 down to 170, there's some changes there that are happening.
Yeah.
But they don't know exactly how much this freeze thaw plays into the whole process.
Or how it created the hoodoos in the first place.
Exactly.
Because they're huge.
Exactly.
They're giant hoodoos.
So all we do know is that there is an amazing opportunity for this freezing action to participate in the process of making the hoodoos.
Okay. For those of you wondering if you have been to Cedar Breaks, I just looked up the elevation of Cedar Breaks. Their visitor center is 10,300
wow
feet above sea level.
That's amazing.
Isn't that crazy?
Yes.
So Cedar Breaks is not that far from Bryce Canyon, and it's very similar in, it's a big giant bowl and it has hoodoos forming and stuff like that. It's very similar, just not to the same scale as Bryce Canyon. And Cedar Breaks is a national monument, for those of you that don't know. It is NPS protected. But yeah, I mean, that elevation, again, that's why I was wondering, like, how much of the elevation affects. But it's like, it seems like the higher the better in this case.
Well, because the next thing that you have to think about is the precipitation.
Yeah.
Okay? Because Utah is one of the driest states in the country.
Second, right?
Yeah, right after Nevada.
Yeah, okay.
Bryce Canyon only gets like 15 inches of precipitation a year. And a lot of that is the snow.
Yeah.
If you can imagine, what would happen if this was a really, really wet place?
Things would erode away too fast.
Exactly. If you had lots and lots of rain, first of all, it probably wouldn't even look like this. But if you had a ton of rain, it would probably wash all of this stuff away.
Yeah.
And so you can't have too much rain because then you don't have the opportunity to actually carve anything out interesting. But if you don't get enough rain,
no carving takes place.
Exactly.
It's just a big expanse of solid sandstone.
Exactly. Bryce Canyon, once again, exists in this perfect Goldilocks zone where the elevation is just right to provide us with a temperature that is just right, and we get an amount of precipitation that is just right, but we get the right kind of precipitation too. And so you get the snow instead of all of the monsoon rains that could wash everything away.
Which it does get a little bit of that, but it gets a lot of snow in the winter.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, now this is something that the freeze-thaw hypothesis doesn't really take into account. The kind of rock that we have at Bryce Canyon. Okay, now, so Ash, we've traveled the country a lot. We've seen lots of different geologic formations, lots of different national parks. Bryce Canyon, the layers of stone here, it's called the Clarin Formation. And the colors are really cool, like a lot of pinks, whites, some oranges and yellows in there. But there's a specific stone that I think the freeze-thaw hypothesis doesn't take into account. There's a lot of limestone in this layer of rock. What's something that you know about limestone?
It's really good for caves.
It's really good for caves. Exactly. And so if you go to places like Carlsbad Caverns, they're going to talk a lot about limestone.
Yeah.
And so this Clarin Formation has a lot of limestone in it. And limestone dissolves really easily in certain situations because what it has in it is it has a lot of calcium carbonate. And calcium carbonate dissolves
It fizzes when it's a liquid.
Exactly.
When the water hits it, it's like carbonation in your soda. That's what eats away the rock and makes caves.
Yes, exactly. Especially when this calcium carbonate meets with carbonic acid, then it dissolves relatively easily and quickly. Naturally, in rain, there is carbonic acid. So imagine you have this entire layer of limestone mixed with sandstone, and then you mix in just a little bit of rain that has some of this carbonic acid in it, and then you get all of these freezing days every year, there's this amazing opportunity, I think, for creating and carving out interesting things.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that these two park rangers pointed out in their article is that this Clarin Formation appears other places in the Southwest, but it doesn't make hoodoos, which just proves the point of this Goldilocks Zone situation. Maybe we don't know exactly why, but Bryce Canyon just happens to exist in the perfect Goldilocks Zone, where it's the right elevation to give us the right temperatures, and then it gets the right amount of rain, and it has the right kinds of rocks, and then it has the right kinds of chemicals in the rocks and the rain, so that the water, as it melts, as the snow melts or as the rainwater seeps into the stone, not only is it freezing and thawing, which creates little gaps, but it's also dissolving the rock in certain ways and then freezing and thawing and then breaking it, that creates these amazing shapes that it couldn't make anywhere else.
Yeah.
That is just right. That is amazing to me. That is the most unlikely Goldilocks discovery anywhere.
Yeah.
I just think that's so cool. And we don't get caves. We don't actually get really like caves like that you would expect with a lot of other limestone dissolving things. Things just maybe go slower. Things go more methodical, a little bit more weird.
Well, and it's steep, so maybe that has something to do with the water running off instead of sitting and dissolving.
Yeah.
Like
because it's such a high elevation.
You know what I mean? Yeah. That could play into it too.
Yes. So, but the point is, we may or may not know what causes the formation of these hoodoos. But what we do know just goes to prove that this place is so special. Because so many factors are leading into the creation of this that just don't happen anywhere else. And I think that's neat.
It is.
I think that's
awesome.
That's super cool. Okay, so let's move on from fun fact number 3. And that was all about the creation of the hoodoos, which I think is super cool. And I love that there's still some mystery there.
Yeah.
Fun fact number 4 brings us back to one of those Goldilocks factors, the elevation. Fun fact number 4 is that Bryce Canyon is the final step in the grand staircase.
The top step.
Yes.
If you will.
Yes, the final step in the stairway to heaven.
Yeah.
Which I have been listening to that song nonstop all like last 2 days. For some reason, it just felt right to listen to that song. Oh my gosh. But yes, so if you don't know what the grand staircase is, let me give you a couple of points that will tell you why
Before
this is
you say what it actually is. Do you know, when I learned about the grand staircase, I think we learned about it in 5th grade here in Utah.
Yes.
I was sorely disappointed that it was not an actual staircase. That you could I knew it would be a big area or whatever, but I really just for a long time thought it was just a big step that you could visually see pretty easily while you were there.
Yes.
Nope,
not it.
What a disappointment. But I will say, what I love about Bryce Canyon, and I'm sure you'll talk about this, is that you can see the steps from Bryce Canyon. So it was kind of fulfilling my childhood dream of actually seeing the giant staircase.
Right. I know. It's so cool.
You can see that at Bryce Canyon, probably better than almost anywhere.
I feel like there's 2 different ways you can view a staircase. You can view it from the bottom or you can view it from the top.
Yeah.
Right? And there is a place where you can kind of view it so that you're looking at the steps and getting a side profile of them. And that's Lefevre Point. It's kind of on the way towards the north rim of the Grand Canyon. But it's at the bottom of what you're seeing.
Yeah, kind of more in the middle. Maybe.
Yeah. Because what happens is the grand staircase, with Bryce Canyon being the top, you then take steps down in many, many different layers and cliffs.
Yeah,
and
layers of rock. You're going down layers of rock.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
what it is, yeah.
And then you get to the Grand Canyon, and then it's just super steep.
Yeah.
Right?
And then you're done.
Yeah.
There you go.
Exactly. But what makes the Grand Staircase like unique within the world is that it preserves more Earth history than any other place on Earth. And so if you start at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, you're in rock that's billions of years old.
Yeah. I mean, that's where my mind just kind of goes, nope, shut off, not thinking about.
Cannot compute.
Yep.
It's just so old. You got they call it I think it's the Vishnu schist. It's a hard.
Wow, Vishnu schist.
Yeah, it's a hard.
Everybody try saying that right now. That's hard.
Don't try to say it 5 times fast.
Yeah.
I feel like there will be some incidents. But yeah, it's billions of years old. But from like the top of Bryce Canyon just to what you can see, which is kind of the edge of the Grand Canyon, that's at least 600 million years of rock formations that are preserved and easily accessible for geologists to study.
Yeah.
Because there's so much of it that's exposed. You have cliffs, and then you have layers where it's like the entire landscape is that layer.
Yeah.
And so there's just so much to study, and it's so cool. And so it's kind of like, for geologists, it's like reading a history book. And it's amazing because there's so few pieces of the story that are missing. Most of the story is there, which is so cool. And so one thing I didn't realize, though, while I was studying this, which is why we've talked about this in other Fun Facts episodes, metamorphic and igneous rock cannot preserve fossils. Only sedimentary rock.
Yeah.
And so, which is why the Grand Staircase and like southern Utah in general is so cool for geologists and paleontologists.
Right, because there's a lot of fossils to find. There's a lot of things preserved in those sedimentary layers.
I know, it's so cool.
If you want to see the Grand Staircase as a staircase, as good as you're going to see it from Bryce Canyon, we really like Yovimpa Point. Right. That's kind of my favorite place to go to see that. It's at the very end of the scenic drive. And then you can hike through the bristlecone forest, which is a plus.
It is a plus. But I was just about to lead into that because we talked about there's very few places where you can view the entire landscape or view the entire staircase. And Bryce Canyon, especially at the very top, like you were talking about, Yovimpa Point, that is the spot to do it. Because you can see when the idea of the Grand Staircase was developed, it was developed by a geologist. He saw it from, I would imagine, like the Bryce Canyon viewpoint area where he just saw like major big steps. And so he came up with the idea of, okay, we're here in Bryce Canyon. We're in the pink cliffs. And then you go down, you go to the gray cliffs and the white cliffs and the vermilion cliffs and the chocolate cliffs. They're just generic giant steps in the staircase. Geologists since then have broken each of those steps down into even smaller steps based on all of the different layers. And so it's just amazing that there is so much here to study, and you can see it all from Bryce Canyon.
Yeah.
And the air quality, generally speaking, at Bryce Canyon is so good that you can see at least 100 miles or more.
Well, you can see all the way to the Kaibab Plateau, which is the north rim of the Grand Canyon. So, I mean, you basically are seeing the whole thing. I think there's only, from Yovimpa, I'm trying to think of which layer. I think there's only really one layer that you can't see very good from there. But you can see the white because there's some formations in there that you can see from Bryce Canyon. You can see, I think it's probably the vermilion that's hard to see. Right. That's kind of the step right above the Kaibab layer. So anyway, but it's really cool that you can pretty much see all of it. And as John mentioned, when you're at such a high elevation, the air gets thinner and there's very little pollution in this area, very little light pollution at all, but other types of pollution too. Right. And so the sky is just incredibly clear most of the time, and you can see really far. That's why the night sky viewing is so good here too. Exactly. But if we're talking about why, this is another aspect of the Grand Staircase that I think is cool.
if the air is so clear around here, Ash, how come you can't see the grand staircase from other locations, maybe lower down or something?
Because you need to be higher.
Because this landscape is so vast that if you're in a different spot lower down, the curvature of the earth actually hides some of these other steps. So your answer about needing to be higher is correct. If you're standing in the White Cliff area, like on a ledge or something like that, you're not high enough above things to cancel out the curvature of the earth.
You're so funny. You're so cute.
I just think
so
that's
excited.
Oh, it's amazing. You really are. From Bryce Canyon, from Yovimpa Point, as you're looking out, you're seeing a huge section of the planet that you're high enough to actually see, which normally you can't ever. So if you want to see wide open spaces, when you come out west, you've got the song that everybody sings about wide open spaces. That's not coming to mind.
The Dixie Chicks.
What is it, the Dixie
Chicks? The Wide
Chicks?
Open Spaces song?
Oh, give me a home where the buffalo
Home on the
roam.
Range.
Home on the Range. Oh, I guess maybe it's not exactly the same.
Nope.
This is the place, is what I'm talking about. It's another Goldilocks zone where you can see something you can't see anywhere else.
Nice.
Which I think is super cool. And that's fun fact number 4 about the Grand Staircase. So let's step back for a second and let's leave the science behind and let's go to fun fact number 5, which is always the human aspect.
Yes.
Which is always fun.
I'm so excited.
We've talked about how this place is so special. And for Euro-Americans, hundreds of years of experiencing this place, but Native Americans have been here for thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
But there's just so many people that have experienced this place for the first time. And when we started this episode, we talked about how you're kind of awestruck when you first see Bryce Canyon. And for the majority of human history, the reason it's called hoodoos is because the awe was mixed with a little bit of fear of the unknown. Like, What is this place? And now we're struck with kind of the awe with wonderment and amazement. The Native Americans had the most amazing legend surrounding this place. And there's a Paiute elder that in 1936, he shared the legend about Bryce Canyon with a park naturalist. And I thought we should just read it. It's so super short, but it's super cool.
Mm-hmm.
Before there were humans, the legend people, Tuwan Anungwa, lived in that place. There were many of them. They were of many kinds, birds, animals, lizards, and such things, but they looked like people. They were not people. They had power to make themselves look that way. For some reason, the legend people in that place were bad. They did something that was not good, perhaps a fight, perhaps some stole something. The tale is not clear at this point. Because they were bad, Coyote turned them all into rocks. You can see them in that place now, all turned into rocks. Some standing in rows, some sitting down, some holding on to others. You can see their faces, with paint on them just as they were before they became rocks. The name of that place is Enka Kuswasawits, red painted faces. This is the story the people tell.
Yeah, I love it so much.
Isn't it just like the perfect experience of seeing Bryce Canyon for the first time? It's like, he mentions all of their faces and the colors, and it's just like all of the different shapes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think very visceral. It's like you see this place and it's kind of scary.
It's like you're being watched.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I mean, you do feel it in the underlying feeling of this park is, I think, when you know the Native American legend behind it and what they believe about this place,
mm-hmm.
It just adds in that element of fear that you're talking about, like the fear and the awe instead of just the wonderment. And I think that it makes it an extra layer of cool.
Yeah. And there's different ways to experience this park too. Like you can hike and at different times of day, it will appear different to you.
The way the shadows hit the hoodoos and the different shading on the pillars,
Mm-hmm.
it can make it look like faces. It can make it look like I said, like you're being watched.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
And in the park, they do full moon hikes
Mm-hmm.
too.
Yeah.
And so I could just imagine it being kind of creepy sometimes.
Yeah.
And imagine you're a Native American thousands of years ago walking through, stepping away from your campfire a little bit and walking through the hoodoos, the faces that would appear.
I wonder if, like other places, they kind of avoided the area.
Uh-huh.
Or if it was considered sacred. I'm not sure that I know the answer to that question.
Yeah. There are artifacts from Native American people that go back a really long time. But I think...
Just in the general area or like in Bryce Canyon?
I think it was more hunting and gathering. And so like coming for a short period of time and moving on.
Okay.
And so I don't think that there were any... From what I could tell, there weren't permanent Native American settlements inside the park.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's cool as you travel around the Southwest and see a lot of these Native American sites. It's like sometimes it's so sacred to them that they go back as a pilgrimage a lot of the time. It's somewhere they go back to do ceremonies and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Grand Canyon is very much like that.
Mesa Verde's like that.
Yeah, but then some of them, it's just like it's a place full of fear.
Mm-hmm.
For them. It's somewhere that feels tainted that they just kind of avoid.
Yeah, Crater Lake is kind of sort of like that.
Yeah, we talked about that. Mm-hmm.
Maybe not necessarily on the tainted side, but like it's a holy, scary place.
Yeah. It's like they underlyingly knew that like something mysterious was happening here.
Uh-huh.
Do you know what I mean? And they have their ways to make sense of that. And I just think it's cool because I think when you're in Bryce Canyon, you can feel the underlying layers of just that mystery that kind of surrounds this whole area.
I know. It's so cool. I want to take like a moonlight hike with a torch,
like a real lantern.
Like an Indiana Jones torch.
Yeah.
And walk through the hoodoos.
I don't think anyone's stopping you from doing that, John.
I think that the park rangers might have a fire problem.
Well, yeah, don't do a real candle, but you could do a fake one.
I could do that.
There's lots of those.
I have walked around my neighborhood with my lantern and looked really weird to people. Yeah. It's just really cool. Way to get your imagination
that was
going.
A strange time of... Oh my gosh. Oh, so cool. I love... Bryce Canyon has a really interesting human history. I think by far my favorite part of the human history of Bryce Canyon does have to do with the Native Americans that lived there.
Right.
Before the settlers started moving in.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a whole nother story there with the settlers moving in and, wanting to protect it while also wanting to exploit it while also wanting, there's always mixtures of that as the national parks are being formed.
Oh,
so
Bryce Canyon is the perfect case study in so many ways for like the general park story.
Yeah.
For how does a place become a national park? Bryce Canyon is the perfect case study because, so you have all the Native Americans that lived there since time immemorial. We just covered their story.
They barely.
Barely. Yeah, we covered one legend about their story. Oh my gosh. But then the emotion that they had, it seems like through their legend, was the awe mixed with a little bit of fear and concern and worry. When the Euro-Americans came, when the pioneers and the settlers and the explorers came through Bryce Canyon, it was still awe. They were still awestruck, but it was much more of the like awe and wonderment. Mm-hmm. Let's share this with everybody. Bryce Canyon is the perfect case study for becoming a national park because you had private individuals that wanted to share this with people and they built hotels and they, hosted and facilitated lots of people coming and enjoying the park.
Horseback riding tours, stuff like that.
Exactly. And you can see their imprint on the landscape so easily because you drive right past all of the hotels that they made. Ruby's Inn.
The Best Western Plus.
Exactly. But
no, not all. But Ruby's Inn is probably the main one that was like, that's when people really started saying, hey, we should have something here.
Exactly.
But I mean, there's a lodge in the park too.
Right. And that was so you had the private individuals facilitating so many visitors coming. And then you had the government, which partnered with the railroads, which then came in and they built railroad to Cedar City. And then they bused people through all of the Utah parks that were in the area at the time. And so they took people to Zion and Bryce and the north rim of the Grand Canyon. They called it the Grand Circle, which is where the original term comes from. The railroad facilitated even more people coming from far away to come to this place. And then the railroads built massive, beautiful lodges in the park. And that's why we have the Bryce Canyon Lodge. It's because the railroads built it.
Yeah.
And so that is very normal in the stories of national parks. And then eventually the railroads give the lodge to the National Park Service. And so that's kind of what we have.
Yeah, and you always have a movement in there where people are like, this place is really cool, but like people are being stupid when they come here to visit. like you always have some people from the community or whatever going, I think we need to put a little bit more boundaries on how this land is used and how many people, come in and what they're doing when they're here and all that. There's always that kind of in between when the railroad then will decide to say, oh, here's the lodge for the national park.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
exactly.
There's always a movement there with the locals as well that kind of gets that into national park status.
Yeah, exactly. So, and the people, the original people, Reuben for Ruby. So Ruby was really interested in protecting the place. But then you also had, it was like a supervisor or something for a local section of the U.S. Forest Service.
Okay.
And so he sent pictures and stuff back to Washington, D.C. Hey, let's protect this place.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people were working to protect these hoodoos because they recognized how special it was. They were awestruck, as we all are awestruck when we visit Bryce Canyon. The awe is such a human aspect when you visit this place. That is what you should take away from the fun fact.
So for your task to kind of round out this fun facts episode is we want you, when you visit Bryce Canyon or when you're looking at photos of Bryce Canyon, to really take on the air of mystery that you'll feel here in this park. Look for those faces in the hoodoos. Look for what might have caused that awe and fear.
Yeah.
Kind of really lean into that as you're visiting this park because it is going to add to the experience and make it so much more fun for you. One way that we do this is when we're hiking through the park with our kids and stuff, we will have them look for faces or look for shapes in the hoodoos and stuff like that. And it becomes a really fun, imaginative place to be. And so not only are you feeling like that fear kind of going that direction, but you're also feeling that wonderment and that amazement. So you get all of the good stuff.
All the good stuff. So much fun.
Yes. So just keep that in mind. That's what we'd like you to remember from this episode is to really embrace the spirit of the hoodoos in Bryce Canyon National Park.
And if you're enjoying the Exploring the National Parks podcast, please give us a 5-star review. We really appreciate you. And we hope that you're able to go and get some dirt in your shoes.